The Thomas Crown affair has always been built around style. Norman Jewison's 1968 film turned Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway into one of cinema's most elegant cat and mouse pairings. Then John McTiernan reinvented the story in 1999 with Pierce Brosnan and Rene Russo, replacing the original bank robbery setup with high-end art theft and making the romance just as important as the crime. Michael B. Jordan is not simply remaking the Thomas Crown affair. He is trying to prove that one of Hollywood's slickest crime stories can still feel dangerous, romantic, and modern almost 60 years after the original. The first trailer is finally here, and the biggest change is obvious immediately. This Thomas Crown is not stealing because he is bored. He is stealing because he believes something was taken from people who deserve to have it back. That gives this version a very different emotional engine. Now Michael B. Jordan is taking control of the entire machine. He stars, directs, and produces the new film for Amazon MGM Studios, making this one of the biggest creative swings of his career. After Creed 3, Jordan is using his second feature, a director, to tackle a story that already has two successful cinematic identities. If he copies either earlier movie too closely, the remake feels unnecessary. If he changes too much, it stops feeling like the Thomas Crown affair. The trailer suggests he understands the problem. Instead of presenting Crown as a rich thrill-seeker stealing for entertainment, this version gives him a personal mission. He appears to be targeting stolen art and trying to return it to the people or communities who actually have a claim to it. That immediately changes how we look at him. He is still a thief, but he may not see himself as the villain. The poster reinforces the idea with the tagline, "Revenge is a work of art." Jordan's tuxedo and gloves image sells control more than luxury. The trailer also makes one thing very clear: the romance is still essential. Audrey Aryona plays the woman who enters Crown's orbit and immediately begins matching him move for move. Their scenes are built around suspicion, attraction, and psychological pressure. That is important because the Thomas Crown affair has never really been about whether the thief can get away with the crime. It is about whether two intelligent people can trust each other when both know exactly how dangerous the other one is. Every conversation feels like a negotiation, and every flirtation could be a trap. That is where Jordan and Aryona have to sell the movie. The heist can be impressive, the locations can be beautiful, and the suits can be perfect. But if the chemistry between them does not work, the entire film loses its center. Jordan brings a very different energy from Steve McQueen or Pierce Brosnan. McQueen's Crown was cool because he seemed emotionally detached. Brosnan's version was playful, arrogant, and almost impossible to embarrass. Jordan appears more intense. This Crown looks like he has something to prove, and that fits the revenge angle. Instead of stealing only for the thrill, he appears to have a reason that could make the audience actively want him to win. That makes the new film more accessible, but it also creates a risk. Thomas Crown is interesting because he is morally slippery. If the remake turns him into a straightforward hero, some of the tension disappears. The best version of this story would let him do something noble for selfish reasons, or something criminal for reasons we understand emotionally. The supporting cast is also unusually strong. Kenneth Branagh appears to be playing the central antagonist, described as a manipulative and highly dangerous figure positioned directly against Crown. That is an interesting reversal. Previous versions treated the investigator chasing Crown as the main opposing force. Here, the trailer suggests there may be a much larger threat operating behind the crime itself. If Branagh's character is tied to the stolen art, then Crown may be fighting a system rather than simply trying to outsmart law enforcement. Lily Gladstone also joins the cast, while Pilou Asbach and Danai Gurira round out a group that feels designed to make every conversation slightly dangerous. The trailer is balancing three things at once: the heist, the romance, and the revenge story. Jordan has already called his version big and sexy, and the trailer absolutely looks designed for theaters. The photography is polished, the locations are expensive, and the action is smooth rather than chaotic. Everything seems built around the idea that sophistication itself can create suspense. That puts the movie in direct conversation with the 1999 version. John McTiernan's remake worked because it understood that audiences did not simply want to watch Pierce Brosnan steal something. They wanted to watch him enjoy the game. The pleasure came from watching Crown stay one move ahead. Jordan's version seems to be keeping that appeal while adding more emotional motivation. If Crown is stealing to correct an injustice, then the audience may actively root for him rather than merely enjoying his confidence. The release date also shows how seriously Amazon MGM is treating the project. The film is scheduled to open worldwide in theaters on March 5, 2027. That is 28 years after the Brosnan remake and 59 years after the Steve McQueen original. Very few crime stories remain culturally recognizable across that kind of timeline. But this one survives because the central fantasy never gets old. A brilliant thief, a beautiful opponent, a perfect crime. And to people who are never completely sure whether they are falling in love or setting each other up. The earlier films also create real pressure. The 1999 version earned more than $124 million worldwide and became one of the rare remakes many viewers genuinely loved. That means Jordan is not reviving a forgotten title. He is stepping into a story people already associate with very specific performances. For some viewers, Steve McQueen is Thomas Crown. For others, it is Pierce Brosnan. Jordan now has to make the character feel like his. That personal mission gives Jordan a reason to reinterpret the role instead of imitate it. The movie is also testing whether old school star glamour can still work in a modern blockbuster. No multiverse, no superhero suit, no giant digital army. Just charisma, deception, romance, money, and a crime that looks impossible. Honestly, that sounds refreshing. If Jordan can make the heist smart enough, the romance dangerous enough, and the revenge story personal enough, the Thomas Crown Affair could become the rare remake that earns its existence, but the standard is high. The previous two versions already proved this story can work. Now the new film has to prove it can surprise us. The Thomas Crown Affair arrives in theaters on March 5, 2027. I want to know where you stand after this first trailer. Does Michael B. Jordan look like the right person to reinvent Thomas Crown for a new generation? Or does the Brosnan version still feel impossible to top? Because this remake is not hiding what it wants to be: big, stylish, romantic, and dangerous enough to make revenge look like art.